This is Crowned, a Smell Baseball podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Baseball. Today, we journey back to one of the most remarkable, uneasy, and historically loaded fall classics in baseball history, the 1918 World Series, a series played not for glory, not for money, not entirely, but in the long shadow of war. A series remembered less for what happened on the field and more for the winds of change off of it. The Boston Red Sox, the Chicago Cubs. 6 games, September baseball, but not in the way you think. And a young man named Babe Ruth, who stood on the mound, not yet as a myth, but as a muscle, a workhorse, a pitcher. This is the 1918 World Series. Right now, we should be playing the Star-Spangled Banner, which was played during the 7th inning stretch because of the U.S. involvement in World War I. Let's set the scene. In 1918, America was at war. Young men were dying in Europe. Towns across the country were quieted by fear, rationing, and grief. The government had issued work or fight orders. Players had to contribute to the war effort or risk public and professional shaming. Many took jobs at shipyards or enlisted. The baseball season was cut short. Spring faded into the front lines. But still, they played. In early September, weeks before autumn had officially begun, the World Series opened. Not as a celebration, but almost as an obligation, a ritual to remind America of normalcy. The crowds were smaller, the patriotism was louder, and the ball players, many with draft cards in their pockets, knew this might be their final game before battle. The Boston Red Sox entered the series having dominated the American League. It was their 4th pennant in 7 seasons. Their roster brimmed with talent. Wally Schang behind the plate, Harry Hooper in the outfield, and of course, George Herman Babe Ruth. Now let me stop you right there. This was not yet the Sultan of SWAT. This was the Babe, all right, but primarily a pitcher. He was a left-handed force on the mound, and in 1918, he went 13-7, still transitioning to a full-time hitter. In this World Series, his arm would do the talking. Their opponents, the Chicago Cubs, the National League champs with 84 wins, they had their own ace in Hippo Vaughn, a burly, dominant southpaw with an ERA under 1.75. They also had speed, depth, and a chip on their shoulder. They hadn't won a title since 1908. This was no mismatch. It was a duel of grit and silence. Game 1, Comiskey Park, not Wrigley. That's right, the Cubs had moved their home games to the South Side's Comiskey Park for seating. Wrigley, then called Wegmans Park, was too small. It might be called Weigman. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Anyway, let's go on. And there, Ruth took the ball. He threw a complete game, 7 hits, 1 run, a 1-0 victory. It was a pitcher's duel. The crowds were subdued, no horns, just the echo of mitts and cleats. Game 2, Vaughn gets his redemption, a 3-1 Cubs win. The series is tied. Game 3 is played at Comiskey Park. The game is played in under 2 hours. Carl Mays pitches a complete game 7-hitter for the Red Sox. Hippo Vaughn pitches a complete game 7-hitter for the Cubs. The Red Sox beat the Cubs 2-1, now lead the series 2-1. Game 4, Ruth again. He gets his 2nd win in the 1918 World Series. He gets his first hit in a World Series game and his 10th World Series at bat. He drives in 2 with the triple, and he was dominant on the mound. He threw 8 more shutout innings, pushing his World Series scoreless streak to 29 2/3 innings, a record that would stand for 43 years until Whitey Ford broke his record. But in the 9th, he tired and gave up 2 runs. Still, Boston held on, 3-2 final, and the Red Sox lead 3-1. Game 5, the Cubs cling to life. Vaughn returns and outduels Bullet Joe Bush. 3-0. Cubs. The series tightens to 3-2. Game 6, back in Boston. Carl Mays on the mound for the Sox. A tough side-arming righty with a mean glare and a reputation for pitching inside, dangerously inside. He'd later kill Ray Chapman with a pitch. But in 1918, he killed the Cubs' hopes. Boston scored early. The Cubs threatened late. But the Sox won 2-1. And that was it. Boston were the champions. Again, their 5th in 15 years. No champagne, no chaos, no parade. Just silence, suspicion, and then dispersal. Now, about that silence. This series had something sour underneath. The players were angry. Gate receipts were lower than expected. War taxes, low attendance, government restrictions cut into their shares. They were told their take-home pay would be nearly half what it was in 1917. Both teams considered striking. They didn't, but the distrust lingered. And then came the rumors. Fixed games, player revolts, shady deals. No proof, no scandals, but baseball was entering an era of doubt. The 1919 Black Sox scandal was just around the corner, and the undercurrents were already swirling in 1918. The Red Sox wouldn't win another World Series for 86 years. A year later, Babe Ruth was sold to the Yankees, and with him, the magic left Fenway. The team spiraled. Decades passed. Fans called it the curse of the Bambino. But it all began here in 1918, with Ruth not as a home run king, but a World Series hero on the mound. The Cubs, they'd wait even longer. Not until 2016 would they finally lift the title. The 1918 World Series wasn't about fireworks. It was a quiet, clenched fist kind of series. Played with restraint under clouded skies, it mirrored its time, uncertain, mournful, patriotic, and deeply human. But in that silence, greatness still spoke. A young Ruth, calm, dominating, dual threat. A nation distracted, grieving, and grateful for even a few innings of escape. And a game pausing on the edge of history. The 1918 World Series was a crown, not just of victory, but of endurance. This has been crowned a Smell Baseball podcast. I'm Mr. Baseball, and in baseball, even silence leaves a scent. See you next time.